National Geographic's relationship with photography and Peru are all intertwined. All of Peru, unbelievable country of mysteries and surprises. This is definitely one of the centers of civilization. It's really incredible to be able to look into the eyes of an ancient ruler. This is the power of archaeology. Thank you all for being here. I want to talk to you a little bit about being a representative of National Geographic and working in these great civilizations. And I like to bring storytelling to these, and I like to tell stories about heroes. National Geographic's relationship with photography and Peru are all intertwined, and I want to tell you that little story. And I actually want to start by telling you a little bit about Peru. It's extraordinarily photogenic. This is a photograph by Hiram Bingham, who documented the high mountains of Peru. And this is really what makes Peru one of the great centers of civilization, is its geography. The high mountains, the beautiful, rich valleys between the mountains and the coast. The coastal deserts, which were once described in the pages of National Geographic as being small Nile deltas. And in fact, unlike Egypt that has one Nile River, northern Peru has 20 of these deltas. It's unbelievable that you can have 1 foot in the fertile delta and 1 foot in the desert. This makes it an extraordinary place for preservation and creation of ancient civilization. It's a place where archaeological sites tower above the countryside. This particular mound that you see in the front is actually a Peruvian pyramid. Here's an example of what one could imagine that looked like in the past. There are 20 such river valleys in northern Peru. It's an outstanding, unbelievable relationship, and much of it has to do with the fact that it is one of the largest, most productive coasts along the Pacific coast of the New World. It's an unbelievable culture, unbelievable country, and it's that geographic relationship that we like to explain, helps explain how Peru is a country that can both be described as having over 10,000 archaeological sites, or as I like to say, there's only one site in Peru, all of Peru. I mean, it is really, you walk the Inca Trail and you really can't tell when you're on a site and off the site. The entire country, from the north coast to the south coast, from east to west. It's unbelievable country of mysteries and surprises. Now, I'm actually going to start telling the story a little bit before the founding of National Geographic, because so many travelers and adventurers have been attracted to Peru. It's sort of mysterious and wonderful. It's been attracting people for hundreds of years, and its history goes back more than 3,000 years. It has separate cultural traditions on the north coast, the highlands, and the south coast. It's really phenomenal. I have to take my hats off to yet another set of incredible heroes. Julio Teo, the father of Peruvian archaeologists, he was from the highlands, and he really introduced the idea of Andean civilization. He began to study the cultures of ancient Peru. He's one of the first researchers to come up with that chronology. And he had a partner, Rafael Larco. These two guys, they kind of fought over where the heart and soul of Peru lay. You had Teo, who was from the highlands, who argued for temples in the highlands, and you had Larco, who came from the coast. He said, oh, no, it's the coast cultures, and that debate continues to this day. But we all were fascinated by the mystery and culture, and we all thought that this site, which Teo worked at, that Larco worked at, the famous temple of Chavin du Hantar, it was really the heart, the essence of Andean civilization. It was so important, and it was so mysterious and so luxurious that it actually became my introduction to archaeology and my introduction to South America. I had the chance to visit. Well, okay, it wasn't last year. All right, so, you know, you're looking at this statue. You see this statue, right? It's carved in beautiful 3,500 years old. Oh, and yeah, I was a hippie once, a little while ago. But that's Chavin du Hantar. What an introduction to South America. What an introduction to Peru, to go visit a place. What a way to get inaugurated into the wonders of archaeology. It's great. And I became intrigued with the history of all this exploration and who went and where it went. And we all sort of looked even further back into the pages, like who was exploring, who was caught with this mystery and wonder of the archaeology and culture. And I became enamored with this particular fellow, Ephraim Squire. He was a wonderful explorer for the US government, and he was sent as the commissioner to Peru by none other than Abraham Lincoln in the 1860s. This is how far the history goes back in this, and the wonderful storytelling. And as commissioner, he wrote this incredible book called The Land of the Incas, illustrated with 500 woodcuts. Really, I mean, it was the artistry, the magnificence, the wonder of this country that attracted people. These woodcuts were known and reproduced. I mean, this was a very, very popular book published in 1877. People were so desirous. I became fascinated because there was this photograph of Ephraim Squire, and being here at National Geographic, we're naturally very interested in photographs. But you know, Squire, he made these incredible illustrations that are woodcuts in his book, and we assumed that he must have had a photographic memory. Look at this bridge. Unbelievable. You had to go to Peru to imagine that something like that was real. It was so exciting for me to see in a woodcut like this of Alta Peru, which is today on the other side of Lake Titicaca, but still part of this greater Peruvian country. And I became quite curious being here at National Geographic. How did somebody record something like this? And it was only recently, and I was so excited to be able to find the photo archives that were the basis for the 500 woodcuts in this. It shows the relationship between photography and archaeology. We have one of the great photographers of National Geographic, Kenny Garrett, who's here, who can attest to the fact that photographing in Peru is like photographing a wonderland. It was amazing to see how beautifully reproduced the photographs. Here's one of the woodcuts from 1877, and here's one of the newly discovered photographs that Squire took. He was not only an explorer, he himself was a photographer. I became intrigued with this aspect, this relationship between photography and archaeology. I think it's critical to our understanding of the past, not only in Peru, in Central America, in Egypt, in Greece. It's so exciting. And I became attracted to another one of the greatest photographers who ever crossed into Peru, Hiram Bingham. Yes, Hiram Bingham is known primarily for describing Machu Picchu, but do people realize that he was an incredible photographer? At that time, 1911 and 1912, being director of an expedition meant that you were also the photographer. He had this incredible camera created by Kodak for him. And he took these pictures that were not just documentation, but were art themselves. And they were the first rock star archaeology project in National Geographic. But his photographs really are incredible. We have about 2,000 of these photographs here in the photo archives, and someday we're going to do an exhibition of the photo archives here. It's just an incredible opportunity to work with people like Bill Bonner here in the photo archives and see exactly what the genius of photography is. I mean, if you look at this picture taken by Bingham of Machu Picchu with the mountains and the cloud and the local personality on the right hand. I mean, it just is such a story, such a photographic essay in one picture. It's really very, very inspirational. He also documented the people of Peru. And for me, this is the real gift that Hiram Bingham gave to Peru, which is a wonderful photo record of Peru and ancient Peru and the people of Peru all living together. What an inspiration for cultural heritage. But this isn't the only time that we've photographed Peru and ancient Peru. We've been at the forefront, and if we fast forward to really one of the first color photos of an archaeological picture published in National Geographic magazine, it of course came from Peru. This is William Duncan Strong, who in 1946 came to Peru, and after seeing all these wonderful artifacts, came to in hopes of finding the first intact Mochi burial. Mochi is a northern coast period in Peru, about 2,000 years old, very mysterious, only known from the artifacts, and his intention was to come and document an intact burial. Almost an impossible feat, but they found one on the coast. And to quote from the 1947 issue of the magazine, Strong and Evans found this burial, and everybody was so excited. They'd never seen an intact burial from 2,000 years ago. And so they opened it up, and Evans said, "I'm hungry, let's have lunch." Yeah, I tell you, I love reading past National Geographics. It's really great. And so all of his workmen were sitting there confused because they just found something that had never been found before. And the next picture, which was published in the pages of National Geographic, is the first time you're looking inside of an intact Mochi burial. And I think that this is something that National Geographic has taken on as a cachet in terms of telling the stories of the ancient populations of the world. This is a unique picture, 12 pots that have never been seen together in situ. This documentation went around the world in April 1947. These two people, Strong and Evans, became a hero of mine as we pursued this past. And here's one of their color plates. Now, these color plates had to be specially put into each one of the millions of copies of National Geographic magazine. We have even more advances in photography, archaeology, and the understanding of ancient Peru. 1988, another intact Mochi burial from the north coast of Peru was found, and they gave a call to Walter Alva and to Chris Duncan, two researchers who were funded by National Geographic, said, "Please, let's go, let's go." And we started to document this in a way that I don't think archaeology has ever been documented before. And this came out in a 1988 issue of the magazine, which just happened to be on the 100th anniversary of National Geographic. I don't know how that came about, but I mean, it's really incredible. And the first time to be able to look into the eyes of an ancient ruler of Peru and see the archaeologists at the same time. And to come up with this new way to communicate, not only through photographs, but through these iconic drawings. This instantly became the classic model for how archaeology is presented, not only on the pages of National Geographic, but in every textbook and all the way around the world. I think it's really kind of cool. On the right-hand side, you see the different layers from the original coffin box to the way the textiles were laid down, to the way the artifacts were laid in, to the way the body was put in, everything done in exquisite scientific and artistic detail. It became one of the cachets of National Geographic and Peru. These large-scale photographs, this is, I think, the first time we had a centerfold in National Geographic. This was a 3-page picture of this burial. I don't know how they took this picture in 1988, but it is so detailed and so incredible. And what it is, for us who are looking at the beautiful specimens in the museums of and the pieces of Peru and the pieces that you see on display, is that it really gives us a key. It allows us to have an aha moment. When you go back to the exhibition and you see things like a nose piece, and you say, aha, now I understand why it's there. Now I understand why it means something for ancient Peru. Or we see this beautiful turquoise pectoral, and we just have seen it in the picture of the Lord of Sipan. We say, aha, now I understand where it comes from. Now I understand its cultural significance. This is the power of archaeology as presented in National Geographic. I'll tell you one more story about the history, and it's both a good and bad history, is that this wealth of Peru has invited looters to come. This is where Professor Izumi Shimada works, and this is his photograph, which he uses to illustrate the fact that the archaeological site where he works at has somewhere, and he said he counted himself personally, over 100,000 looters' pits. I mean, it's unbelievable. And it is from this site that we know that this famous mask, we call it the Italian mask at this point, because it became known that it was from Sikan. We knew where it was from, thanks to the work of Professor Izumi Shimada. And this piece, actually, the backstory of it is that as soon as it became known that it came from a certain site in Peru, it became a celebrity in Italy. It was as well known as a movie star. It was kind of neat to see archaeological, its portrait was on the front page of magazines, and here's the president of Italy with that handoff moment to Ambassador Forsyth. I think it's an incredible moment of cultures, ancient cultures, understanding one another. But it was Shimada's excavations, Shimada and Carlos Ulera, director of the Sikan Museum, who really spent the time to understand that context, digging down, 20, 30 feet deep into the ground. I mean, these are really heroic excavations going down in hopes of being able to find the context and telling the story. In 1991, that dream for Izumi Shimada started to come true. He looked down and he saw something that glittered, something that he really hadn't expected to see. And this is Professor Shimada. And you can see sort of the 24 feet of earth above him. I asked Izumi today, weren't you a little worried? And he said, oh, we checked every day, not to worry, not to worry. But I mean, it was really incredible. And there he found this piece with its photographs showing exactly how it was found in situ, in a way that reminds me so much of Strong and Evans' description of the first Mochi mask, the first Mochi intact burial, written on the pages of National Geographic in 1947. The thing about the Strong and Evans article in 1947, there was a description but no photograph of the mask. Here it is, magnificent, ornamental, elaborate headdress that really shows the power of the individual and the power that gold exudes and the importance that this material is in Peru. Don't forget, in Peru, gold was never a commodity. It was never traded for its value. It was never stored as wealth. It was always used to symbolize power and that connection with the sun. And when you see it in its original cultural context, with the flames coming off and the bursts and an incredible wolf-like animal who Professor Shimada has promised me, whose tongue still wags back and forth, you understand that power. Well, I'd just like to end with a little bit about the way that National Geographic and archaeologists continue to work in Peru and continue to innovate in archaeology, but especially through the lens. And we're really happy to have on staff at National Geographic some innovators in photography. This is Fabio Amador, who works for the WAIT National Geographic Grant Program. And his camera there is something very, very special called the Gigipan. And he is taking a picture. This is just a few months ago at the famous site of Huaca de la Luna, and these murals, which have never really been thoroughly documented. But these type of advances in photography and in the way we visualize the past, they mean so much to archaeology, to Peru, and to science. Thank you very much.